President Biya appoints the youngest cabinet so far in the history of Sierra Leone, and more than 30% of members of cabinet are going to be women. What does that mean for the country? We are set to find out. We shall also be talking to one of the newly appointed deputy ministers who was a press secretary in the office of the president. He is going to tell us about the youth perspective and the president's vision in the next 5 years. Also, in the program today, we shall be talking to a management consultant to tell us about the new dynamics in governance. And also, Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers calls on West African leaders to expedite regional integration. All these stories and more. Well, on Saturday, President Biya took the nation by surprise by appointing the youngest cabinet so far in the history of Sierra Leone. Well, from full cabinet to deputy ministers, the president brought in young people, which are a total shift from traditional appointments in Sierra Leone, where Dr. David Senge, Chernoba, and Salim Ba, and Dr. Amatu were among the youngest in the new cabinets. Well, Sir Augustine Sheku is a management consultant and a governance specialist who studied at Jimpa and also spent more than 3 decades in the public sector and rose to the rank of senior permanent secretary. Well, he retired last year. Well, as a public sector expert, what does he make of this new arrangement and dynamics when it comes to the appointment that the president has just made? Welcome to the program, Augustine Sheku.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Asmiru, and good afternoon to our viewers out there.
Let me also congratulate you as the chairman-elect of Corner of the Streets.
Thank you very much.
Okay, as someone who spent half of his life in the public sector serving humanity, you rose to the rank of senior permanent secretary, and last year you bowed out. When we look at the new arrangement, the new appointment that the president has made from the governance perspective, what comes to one's mind first?
Thank you very much, Asmiru. Let me first of all congratulate all those who have been appointed to various positions as ministers and other positions of trust in government. I have been in the public service for over 3 decades, as you pointed out, and I've seen a lot of changes that have occurred in the country. And the president, when he came into office, actually decided to change the narratives by making sure that he put priority on human capital development. And in addition to the human capital development, we also find out that in the past 5 years, he has been coming up with reforms, wherein women in particular have been capacitated by ensuring that there is legislation that make it imperative for any appointment to be given to them, 30% of that should be taken by women. And we've also seen a situation where the president has decided to empower youths so that they can actually be part of the governance system. And when you look at the dynamics, you will see that what he has introduced is what I call seeding. That is, he has retained some elderly ones, though in fewer numbers, but he has also looked around and identified young people who he believes have the capacity to help him to accomplish the 5 deliverables that he has highlighted during his manifesto and on which the people of Sierra Leone voted him into office. So this requires that he should go all out to ensure that he does not only pick a team that resonates with his own vision as a president, but has the capacity to be able to address some of those issues. Okay. And I believe the appointment of younger people is as a result of the fact that most of them have the capacity, they have the deliverables, they have the skills. And in this world of information technology, you found out that elderly people normally shy away from becoming ICT savvy. So it's the younger people who are much more very inquisitive to find out what the new dynamics are that actually go into those areas. And I believe because of the skill level that they possess, because mind you, among the deliverables, the president has actually looked at youth unemployment as a very key deliverable, and has also identified ICT knowledge and skills so that we can be part of the knowledge-based world. Because the world today is driven by technology, and it is knowledge-based.
Mr. Sheku, when normally presidents make such appointments, especially at a time like this, just after election, many people helped him in his campaign, and he has to have so many considerations. As someone who has seen the coming and going of ministers in many of the ministries you serve, what do you think normally does the president look for?
Well, there are two factors here. One, you have to look at inclusive governance to see how you can reach out to almost every nook and cranny of this country. Because mind you, Sierra Leone is a diversified society with various interest groups. So you have to make sure that every interest group is represented. And normally this is a nightmare for the president, because each time he resonates to one particular part of the country, other people will feel left out. That inclusivity is very, very key, so that you can actually bring about the inclusive governance that every statesman will want to have take into consideration. You also have to look at people who possess the knowledge, the skills, and the attributes to be able to provide the leadership that is very crucial, so that these people are not only informed about issues, they are also knowledgeable about how do you coordinate so that you can have the desired impact that the president wants to create. And then, of course, during elections, there are various interest groups that come in. Some people come to support you because they believe that they want to be part of, the dividends of governance. So all of these are normally issues that the president takes into account. But I think the critical one that I believe should prevail is competence, because you need to have people who can actually deliver on your mandate. Look, at the end of it all, people are going to assess you not based on how many people you have appointed in their own areas, but whether these people actually have been able to deliver.
So as a former permanent secretary, how would you demystify this concept that many people hold, that bringing in young people in cabinet, young people who have little or no idea about how governance operates, someone who has been in the civil service? How do civil servants normally cope with new ministers, people who are new kid in the block?
Well, the thing about the bureaucracy is that it is permanent, in the sense that positions are there, and these people are appointed not on any other consideration other than competence. So, for example, when positions are vacant, they advertise, and the recruitment is normally done on a competitive basis, and people are selected so that they can actually put their expertise at the disposal of a duly constituted legitimate authority. And so civil servants should not have a nightmare in any transition, especially if they are up to the task. Where they will find problems is if you have a minister that is very much eager to have results. Because mind you, the political cycle is 5 years, but actually the ministers have 3 years to deliver. Because the first 1 year you put in place your vision so that you develop programs and policies that you want to implement. And the last year, it's an election year. So you actually have 3 years to be able to deliver. But the civil servants, on the other hand, they are guided by rules and regulations, because it is the rules and regulations that give them the authority to act. And if they misbehave, these are the areas that we normally take to tame them or to bring them to book. So what you should normally do is, how do you address the issue of political administrative dichotomy? You have to make sure that functionaries who are appointed are actually given the wherewithal, that is, their capacities are built. You are able to provide them with the skills, to the training, you are able to provide them with the logistics, and then you give them deliverables. And if they are found wanting, then that is where you probably take issues with them. Mm-hmm. So the distinction is really one that requires mutuality. The functionaries are there. They should be prepared to put their expertise and their knowledge at the disposal of duly constituted political authority.
So for someone who has been around for the past 3 decades in the civil service, what is unprecedented? What is unique about this current cabinet setup?
Well, what is precedented here and is very unique is the fact that when I look at the 5 key deliverables, the big 5s, as people call them, the architecture of government is being aligned to speak to those big 5s. For example, the president has highlighted information technology, and you actually see him separating Ministry of Information from communication and anchoring communication with technology. That's very, very key. I also find out that government has also identified overhauling the architecture of government to make it efficient. And I see that he has actually appointed a Minister for Public Administration and Political Affairs. Although I would have preferred the title to be Minister of Public Sector Reforms, because when you say Minister of Administration and Political Affairs, it's like the old ways. But if you are talking about overhauling the architecture of government, it means there should be reforms so that you are able to align the structures of all ministries to the overall vision that the president has postulated. And then you are able to ensure that you're coming with a very competitive system wherein people who man these positions at the bureaucratic level actually are selected based on merit. So probably that needs to be looked at again, and probably the mandate that is going to be given to the minister in charge of public administration should not just come to be the usual administration, but should be the one that should interrogate, the architecture of government and see whether it is aligned to the new initiative. And I also see that the president is actually going in for younger people with the requisite skills. Like, for example, the man in charge of the cabinet, as you call him, the chief minister, somebody who is very vast in information technology. So he'll be able to come with the requisite structure and framework that will ensure that oversight is very, very key. So that you know what is happening in every ministry, you are able to get the data, the president is informed, and where there are weaknesses in any particular area, he's able to, spot those areas and make sure that they are strengthened. So to me, it's quite an innovation that the president has actually aligned ministries to speak to the issues that he has identified in the manifesto.
He is Sir Augustine Sheku, former permanent secretary, and now District Council Chair-elect of Kano District. Well, is a podium coming to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Well, as we continue to look at the new appointments, we have in the studio Keketoma Sandy, who is the outgoing press secretary and also now the newly appointed Deputy Minister of Information. Welcome to the program, Keketoma Sandy.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for...
Congratulations on the new appointments.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
The cabinet table is going to be dominated by young faces. And, I'm sure that was deliberate by the president. What message is the president sending?
Well, I think...
what message has he sent?
Well, the message is very clear. Our population is vastly inundated with young people, which means that young people are now going to be the drivers of his vision. This is the most youthful cabinet and the most inclusive cabinet we have got in our history. Now, when we came in 2018, the president obviously had this vision about human capital development, and we achieved a lot and extremely well. Now, president looks at the future. Obviously you had his 5 strategic objectives on the manifesto he wanted to achieve, but now he believes that all of those things can be delivered, or most of them, by young people because of the energy, because of the ideas and the innovation and all of those things. But it also means that added to them, we also have experienced people as well in the cabinet, But then it will be remiss of me if I come here and then I don't commend people who served in the last 5 years, because the former PS was saying, public service is a very challenging space and environment, and therefore for people who served for the past 5 years, the achievement that we made, we also have to commend them for that, for their service to our country, because it's always, you work in a very pressurized environment, and for many of the things we achieved, it was not just done by one person. We had the leadership of the president, but it was a collective work by all of those people. Now, this is a different phase. This is a phase where we had an elections, a campaign, we had the manifesto, and the president want to deliver on those manifestos.
And some of those guys who played in the first round, who scored goals for the president, we are not part of the second team.
Again, like I said, appointments are always a discussion of the president, so we have to give him that space, because obviously, like I said to you, he had the vision when he went to the elections. He campaigned on that vision. and now it's now the implementing stage. It needs that space now to see, okay, who are the people best fitted for me to deliver my vision with, and that's the cabinet he has formed. But then obviously we have people again who are experienced in the cabinet, and he has created another unique position as well for Dr. Kande Yunkela as the chairman for Presidential Initiative for Renewable Energy, for food security, and also for the climate change, which I think is something that's also very important, because at the end of the day, these are experienced people. And these are people who have worked for a very long time in the space, and their experience will help us as young people in the cabinet to move things forward, to progress. But I think on the whole, like you were discussing before I came in, we have for the very first time full cabinet. We have 9 women out of 29, which is above the 30% threshold for that's full ministers, and then the cabinet inclusive of ministers and deputy ministers. Out of 64, we have 21 women, females who are there, which above the 30% quota. So what it also tells you is that this is a president who is continuing with the talk and do legacy that is left, because many people, they thought it will never be possible to have that amount of women in cabinet or at any point in the governance, but he has made it possible. So it's progressive, and like you made mention, these are distinguished young people. So it's not just taking young people, but people who are distinguished themselves in their career. For instance, Madam Salima Tuba, who is going to the new minister for technology, innovation and communications. She has been working at DSTI. She has been a technological lead for DSTI. Vast experience. LLM, because she's a lawyer as well, is part of technology law as well. So vast experience. The lady minister who is going to designate, who's going to Ministry of Sport, Augusta as well. She's knowledgeable in sports. She has worked in athletics for the best part of her life. She has taught sports. She has a master's level in PhD and all those things. So what it has shown as well is that it is not just getting young people, but competent young people and people who can deliver. Obviously, experience comes in, but these are jobs that once you come in, you have the requisite structure around you, you have experience in the job, and you deliver. At the end of the day, there are 2 things you need. You need commitment to public service. You also need to align with the president's vision. Once you have those things, you will deliver.
I mean, how the young people that are now part of the president's team, how would you manage the issue of exuberance? Many times people say young people are given these grandiose tasks and responsibilities, but sometimes they are carried away by the exuberance, and that exuberance defeats their purpose of being where they are.
Well, I think for many people that's a concern, but I think we also, people who have been appointed are responsible young people. People who have not just young people, but they have also have a track record of a career that they've come from. They've worked before, they've been in public offices, The chief minister, he has been the CIO at DSTI for the longest time. He has been Minister of Basic Education, So he has a track record of office in public service. Myself, I've been press secretary, since we came in. I've got now a different portfolio at the ministry level, So everybody that is coming in, who's a young person, has a track record of a career they have been into. So I think during those periods, they have been able to make sure that they conduct themselves, shape themselves, looking forward to this. So I think it's a transition that will come into, but they will maintain that track record, because everybody has a reputation. And as young people, we have more challenges.
And we saw the president peering young people in such. For example, the ministry you have been sent to, you are paired with Chernoba, who is a very young man, young gentleman, also with a sterling track record. And Salima also, she's paired with a very young person, and also how are you guys going to manage that young relationship?
Again, like I said, 2 things: commitment to public service, and also aligning with the vision of the president, because it is not about individuals. I am fortunate. China and I, we came from Albert Academy, from Form 1 to SS3. From a college. So we are brothers. So we have a personal relationship. But even those where there are no personal relationship, I think people are all aligned. They are glued by the commitment to public service and also alignment on the president's vision. Because when we are being appointed, we'll go through parliament, we'll have to go for the swearing-in ceremony, president will speak to us, and clearly, like we did for the past 5 years, normally every time we have swearing-in ceremony of ministers and deputy ministers, it tells them, this is my direction, this is what I want to do. So when you come back to your office, you don't think about petty things, you don't think about little things struggling for power, no. You are aligned with what President wants you to deliver. And I think to the best of our abilities, we'll be able to do that. And also, there's lots of goodwill. So there are many people who have talked about the cabinet, they feel very refreshed. They feel very hopeful that indeed that you have a cabinet which is also inclusive of people from the north. You have people from Bumbali, people from Falaba, Koinadugu, many areas. So it's a cabinet which reflects our country. It's a cabinet which reflects our diversity. It's a cabinet which reflects as well the progressiveness that our country has made. And I think that's hopeful.
Keketoma, before I leave you, I go to the other gentleman in the studio. We saw the president reaching out to another renowned civil society activist, Dr. Aissata Mahoy, bringing her into the fold, giving her a very strategic ministry, reaching out to someone from the civil society, CSO space. And if you remember, a few weeks ago, we were at State House, and someone did say to the president that civil society was also expecting her. Is that what the president had?
Well, I think it is not the way you are making it, like, he has given tokens to society. No. I think the president has always realized that people who work in the civil society space, they are integral part of our governance, because these are knowledgeable people, experienced people, people with expertise. So, for instance, Dr. Aissata Mahoy, she has huge background in gender. She holds a PhD in economic policy, so she's amiably educated, and she has worked in that society space on gender issues. She has been a gender consultant for many UN agencies. So it is not like a token, it's just like we identify people who are competent, who are knowledgeable, and who are now aligned with the vision of the president, and then we reach out to them, But even beyond the CSOs, even the new minister basically that is going to sport, she's the current chairperson for the National Democratic Alliance, you understand? Which also means that we are forming a government and a cabinet wherein people from different political parties, different regions, different districts, they are part of it. And it shows one thing, it shows inclusiveness. Because anytime after elections, people always cry for, we want inclusive government, we want a government which reflects our country, we want a government which reflects women, reflects young people. Well, you have got all in one. So I think it's a great day for Sierra Leone, it's a great day for president, and all of us should support the president and his vision to develop our country.
He is Keketoma Sandy, who is the newly appointed Deputy Minister of Information. It's Podium coming to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation with me, Asmir. Whereas we continue to look at the youth aspect of the ministry. Well, there were many calls on the president during the campaigns to ensure that once he wins the election, the cabinet should reflect young people. Well, Augustine Martinez has been one of those youth activists who had called for youth participation in governance. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Asiru, and thank you for being here.
Do you think this is a time for celebration for young people in Sierra Leone now that they've been brought right at the middle? They've been given one of the highest responsibilities. For example, the Chief Minister David Senge, a very young man, and he's been given that key task and responsibility. So also Chernoba, Salimaba, and others.
Yes. So certainly, this is something we all, as young people, have been craving for. I can still respect in 2018 when we had this initiative for International Model United Nations Conference. We held the General Assembly at Parliament. So these are some of the issues we have been discussing before. Whereas we want to ensure that young people are being inclusive in decision making in the country, more especially at top level. So now having to see this decision being made by the president is a wow factor for us, and we are much more optimistic with the fact that these appointees are going to do extremely well, for the fact that they also have a good tracking records ranging from the chief minister himself. Of course, we all know what he did when he served in as the Minister of Basic Education, and of course another young people that have been appointed over for these cabinets precisely. All of them, literally, if I can name them individually, these are people who have track records. take a look at the likes of the SIBA. These are individuals who have been doing extremely well outside government, and of course, and other young people who are part of the appointees so far. So we are much more optimistic, and we are also looking forward to the fact that after being given this responsibility, they can hold up to it and as well prove to the older folks that we are not only young, but also we have the expertise and the competency to deliver upon whatever thing that has been bestowed.
So what about the young people who are out there? What should they learn from these young men and women?
So it is simple and clear and straightforward, right? These people are not selected based on sentiment. They have been appointed for the fact that they are competent, they have the expertise, and one way or the other, they have delivered before. These are result-oriented people, and I'm much more certain that they'll keep on the trend and literally keep on delivering the good things in which we have given them the opportunity to serve in this different capacity.
Now, I mean, the onus is also on them not to disappoint the president, but to prove the president right that he made the right decision to have appointed them in the first place, and that is very key. That's very crucial.
It is. Now, and not only the president, but the rest of the young people of this nation, literally, because over the years, as Ali mentioned, we have not only been advocating, but we have been reaching out to different elders in ensuring that the young people get themselves involved directly in decision making in this nation. So having to make this decision now for them being part directly, I feel like it's a way to go. And of course, these appointees are having a clear picture of delivering what's expected of them, right? So at the end of the day, they'll have to create the platform for more young people to be given appointment and also responsibility to serve in this different capacity.
Okay, thank you very much. Sir Augustine Sheku, how does a cabinet like this manage the expectations of people, not to give people an expectation that is beyond its reach?
Yeah, well, what will come into play is the fact that they should be seen to be righteous, because the bedrock of governance is righteousness. I remember Ikino, when he appointed the bureaucracy of young people like the president has done, he advised them, he said, do what comes to hand with correct and natural dignity, with humility, independence, and justice, allowing your minds freedom from all other considerations. So if they support the president in ensuring that the president is able to meet the big fives commitments, especially food security, providing jobs for the younger people who are in the vast majority today, and also, of course, building on the human capital initiative that was started in his first tenure, and also rolling out the ICT and ensuring that governance actually work for the poor people or for the people of Sierra Leone by overhauling the architecture of government, so that we are able to harness the potential that this country have. A lot of people definitely will forget about the issue of governance that has been affecting this country all these years. But what people want is to have food on their table. And some of these big deliverables actually speak to them. So if they can only manage the expectation of the people, if they actually support the president to harness all potentials and put it at the disposal of Sierra Leoneans. And mind you, the younger people are not just in the urban areas, they are also people in the rural areas. How do you reach out to them? And I think the first one, which is food security, which talks about ensuring that we're able to feed ourselves. That should also take into account how do you develop the rural areas. Because if you don't transform the rural areas, all that is being done in the urban areas will come to nothing, because that is where you have the potentials. So the only way they can actually manage the expectation of these people of this country is to make sure that they are righteous to the people of this country by doing what is right, and by ensuring that they put opportunities at the disposal of Sierra Leoneans, so that the Sierra Leoneans can harness on those opportunities and be able to develop their potentials, so that they can have the God-given right of looking up for happiness, because that is what everybody is looking for.
Mr. Koma, Pierce, many times we have seen incidences where ministers and permanent secretaries will be at loggerheads. The minister believes it's pleased His Excellency to have appointed him, and the civil servant, the permanent secretary, believes that he's occupying that seat because of his competence, not because of political reward. And sometimes their interests clash. And once their interest clash, productivity becomes questionable. And the delivery that the president looks forward to receiving doesn't normally come to place.
Honestly, a permanent secretary who worth his salt should not have any conflict with any minister, because there are road clarities, and this is clearly stated in the Constitution. The Constitution says where somebody is appointed as a minister, that person provides direction and control. In other words, the person provides the leadership. And subject to that direction and control, the ministry is under the supervision of a permanent secretary. So the minister provides the leadership because he is an epitome of the president. The president is, elected by the people of this country, so also is parliament. That is why when the president nominates, it is parliament that endorses. And so you have the representative of the people there in the form of the minister who provides the leadership. And that leadership should ensure that the vision of the president as it affects that sector is clearly articulated and understood, and the necessary deliverables are provided. And as I said earlier, the issue has been that the bureaucracy, because it is rule-bound, they work within prescribed rules and regulations, and therefore you cannot in any way violate those rules and regulations. But at the same time, the politician is very, very eager to deliver because he or she has limited time. So where do you draw the line? Is to make sure that you provide the wherewithal to the bureaucracy by capacitating them, making sure that they have the tools, they have the equipment, they have the logistics, and then you give them deliverables. So if they fail in that deliverables, then you can take them to tax. So I think it should be mutuality, wherein you support me, you empower me, and I'm also able to deliver for you. So if the ministers understand it from that perspective, there will be very little room for conflict.
Close to 50 years ago, West African leaders formed the regional bloc ECOWAS to promote regional integration and free movement of people and goods. Well, over the years, ECOWAS' attention had shifted mostly from integration to peace and security issues. Well, last week, the West African leaders met in Guinea-Bissau during its 48th extraordinary summit. Well, on the sidelines, I caught up with the chairman, ECOWAS Liberalization Task Force, Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers, who explained to me the barriers hindering regional integration and free movement of people and goods.
In a context where we have some real challenges on our hands, of course, we have the security challenges in the Sahel. We also have governance challenges in the region. We have the traditional issues of how to deepen regional integration. In particular, I am here as the chairman of the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Task Force, which wants to refocus attention on the issue of free movement of goods and services, more free trade, more trading among us in West Africa. And my task force has been looking at the different corridors which have been established by West African countries, such as the Lagos-Abidjan corridor, the Dakar-Bamako corridor, Abidjan-Bamako, Accra-Ouagadougou. All these corridors must be seen to be working to allow West African people to move about freely and to engage in more trade. It should always be kept in mind that the original raison d'etre, the original reason for the establishment of ECOWAS was to promote regional trade and free movement of West Africans to take advantage of the huge potentials of the region for economic growth, economic prosperity, economic development. I think to some extent we have not made the kind of progress which the West African people are expecting. There's still a lot of frustration by the populations in their movement around the sub-region. There are still a lot of road barriers and there are still a lot of difficulties in the way of the population to move around in the sub-region. There's still a lot of road barriers which are unauthorized. There's still a lot of delay at our boundaries. These boundaries, we always say, are artificial. They were created by colonial authorities. 60 years after independence, they are still there. The responsibility is now on us to remove these barriers and to allow for more trade among our people.
These are age-old long problems, and
that is true.
ECOWAS discusses it, but nothing changes.
Yes, so it is time now for action and not for more analysis and more meetings on these issues. If you look at other sub-regions, let me just give an example, the Southeast Asian countries, which sometimes we in Africa want to emulate. Intra-ASEAN trade is 65% and growing. In West Africa, it is still around 12 to 15%. Incidentally, when I was in ECOWAS, and we are looking at more than 10 years ago, it was the same level.
So nothing has changed.
Which is to say that in the past decade, nothing has changed. This is an issue that should be of concern to us, especially as we have so many young people who are unemployed. A region that trades among itself means that it produces more goods and services for trade. That means it creates job opportunities for its young people. That means that it puts itself in a more competitive position to trade even globally. So coming back to the basics of ECOWAS, trade among ourselves, for me, that will open so many doors, including even accelerating the process towards a common currency. Why do you need a common currency? You need a common currency to facilitate trade. So if you are not trading among yourselves, that is also maybe even a disincentive for working towards a common currency. So in short, the discussion that will be held today, tomorrow, during the summit, on refocusing attention also towards regional trade, free movement of goods and services, of persons, will help us to address the fundamental development challenges that we have, which also will contribute towards the peace and stability of the sub-region.
In the context of the current Russia-Ukraine crisis, which has affected economies in West Africa, and trade is of no exception, many of the items you consume in West Africa are imported, are brought from other countries, and that is a huge challenge. How would you navigate that when it comes to trade liberalization?
My response to this will just be that it is no longer tenable for us in Africa, for us in West Africa, to be depending so heavily on external countries for our agricultural needs. Russia and Ukraine cannot be the breadbasket of Africa.
Here is Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers, who is the chair of ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Task Force, and in that interview with me in Guinea-Bissau, where the program is Podium, coming to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Keketoma, there has been this talk also that this is the biggest cabinet so far in the history of Sierra Leone. That amidst the economic challenges in the country, the cabinet is bloated. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think it's about the vision of the president, what the president wants to achieve.
Can't a lean cabinet achieve his vision?
Well, no, because like I said to you, when the president went to the elections, he had a manifesto. And in that manifesto, he sets out his priorities, what he wants to achieve for the next 5 years. And people scrutinize the manifesto, and then they vote. And after the vote, he won the elections. And these 5 years should give him the chance and the mandate, because by the constitution, the president obviously will create offices and makes his cabinet and then compose his cabinet. Now, that is exactly what he's done. Now, there are ministries obviously which have been separated and some joined. So for instance, sanitation was part of health, but now sanitation is part of water resources. Communications has been taken off from information. Now it's gone to innovation and technology. Now, obviously, I think the only new ministry would be the Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Technology. And the reason why that is because part of his big 5 game changers that he gave to the people was that he wants to make sure that we have digital transformation. So for me, I think it's legitimate that president would have now, because it's part of the big 5 priorities, to have a ministry focusing on that. Because we used to have the STI, but obviously the STI is within the presidency. So it's also part of how do we make sure that some of these things, they give more prominence and give more priorities. So I think as a whole, we have to judge president not based on the number of people he appoints. It's based on his delivery. And I think because president will not come to you and give excuse, I have not done this because of XYZ. Because people's expectation is that whatever we have in the manifesto that we presented to the people, we should deliver on that manifesto. How do we deliver on it? The mechanics, the personnel, all of that will be the call for the president. And I think in the same breath, as we are giving the president another mandate, we should also give him the space to make sure that he forms his cabinet and creates the offices that he wants, so that he can be able to deliver on them. And after 5 years, we can also now analyze and then judge.
So how has someone who has been around the presidency, how has the president also managed the should I say the disgruntlement or the not too happy people of those who have been dropped? For example, 2 people who were key in his first term: the former foreign affairs minister, who was the first chief minister, and then the second chief minister, J.J. Safa. Dr. Francis and J.J. Safa, these were 2 key individuals, and they not being part of this cabinet has led to so many speculations, so many debates, and so many nobody knows. I mean, it pleased the president to appoint and not to appoint.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the constitution is very clear, section 56, subsection 4, that all of us work at his discretion. But that is why earlier what I said was that I'll be remiss if I am here without commending people who served in the last 5 years, because for all the achievements we made, whether it was going to the Security Council where we had 188 votes out of 192, Professor Francis did his own bit. Okay, the chief minister when he came in, the former chief minister when he came in as Minister of Finance, it was the one that also helped for us to be reinstated with the IMF program. As chief minister, I was part of the manifesto committee as chair. So everybody. So
with all those standing records, why change them?
No, like I said to you.
Do you change your best player at the middle of the game?
So like I said to you, it's about the vision of the president. Okay, what the president wants to achieve in the next 5 years, and that is his prerogative. It's not a prerogative that we have to subject to public scrutiny, because at the end of the day, people have to judge him by what he has done in office, and we should all give him that space. We should all give him that respectability to make sure that whatever decision he makes, you understand, that decision is what is aligned to his vision. All we have to do is to make sure that these are people who work tirelessly, who we are committed. These are fantastic people, and they did their own bit in terms of our governance, in terms of our achievements, and we have to commend them for that, for the service that they rendered. But as we move along now, the president has made a new configuration of a new cabinet. We look forward to now working with new colleagues who have come in, with a lot of young people, with a lot of women who have come in as well, to make sure that we deliver on what the president has set forth for these 5 years.
Another new person we see on the pitch is Alpha Cisse, who is the Deputy Attorney General.
Yes, so there are many new people, but obviously Alpha is also is a senior colleague of mine, is a lawyer, and he has also been around for a very long time as well. He has vast international experience. He used to work for.
He's doing a very lucrative job.
Well, it is part of the public service. That's why I said, for anybody to be appointed, okay, and 2 things that would mark you to be distinguished is because of your commitment to public service. Because there are many people, even in last regime, who came and took up office. They left many lucrative jobs, but because they believe in public service, because they believe in delivering for the people and also align with the vision of the president, they have made that sacrifice. So Alpha Cisse is a fantastic colleague, is a good person, and I think it will also add enormous value to the AG's office because of his experience. He's been a lawyer for a very long time as well, and he has been part of the justice system as well for a very long time. But also, he brings into the office enormous experience because of his professional background, because of his career path. He has been working as part of the US Embassy, part of the Ambit for Democracy and a few things, So what the president has done is to assemble lots of talented young people.
Okay.
People who are committed, people who believe in his vision, and people who are anxious and determined to deliver on his vision.
Thank you very much. Sakosin Sheku, you've made a very significant transition in your life. A time that many people thought you would have retired to SOA chiefdom. Let me inform you that I am an honorary chief of that chiefdom. So I'm very proud that one of my subjects is now the first gentleman of Kono district. Now, on a more serious note, your transition from this permanent secretary retirement and now again to the public space again to serve your people, your district as the district council chair. How did you come to that decision?
Thank you very much. I think it was predestined because it was Winston Churchill who said, "Great men are ambassadors of providence, sent to reveal to their fellow men their unknown selves." When I was in the public service, I undertook quite a number of studies. One of them was in Jimpa, where I did my master's in public sector management. And whilst we were there, we actually interrogated the architecture of governance, and I was able to put in place certain knowledge that I imbibe, and it came out very clearly that the civil service, the public service has two facets. You have the administrative facet, which is government in action, and you have the political facet, which actually come out with visions. And when I returned, I came to the realization that there was a void in my chiefdom, wherein the chiefdom was well endowed in natural resources, in agricultural potentials, but then there was no market opportunity for the people. And therefore, in spite of their endowment, they were wallowing in poverty. So I took the challenge and decided to bring them together, empower some farmers, and I started a company as an individual together with the communities, and we started buying some of their products. And we realized that there was a market in Freetown. So that actually more or less defeated poverty in my chiefdom, because the people now started earning income on their own based on the potentials that they have, the product that they have. And that also attracted people from other chiefdoms, started coming with so many requests to me to see how I can replicate the initiative in SOA. So when I left government, I retired, I saw the void that there was this leadership gap that need to be filled. And the people approached me and said, "We've been trying to look at people who are compassionate leaders who can actually come and help us to address our problems here. And we've not been able to find one because each time we vote for people, they disappoint us." So in spite of the effort that the president was making to transform Kono by taking in big projects there, those ones were not replicated in the rural areas where the poverty actually was very endemic. And so when the people discovered that I provided that intervention, they were of the view that the local governance, which is the platform that is supposed to take development to their doorsteps, was an appropriate place where I could serve as a leader.
So alleviating poverty is going to be one of your key vision?
But my overall vision is to hound out absolute poverty. Because there are two types of poverty.
I like the choice of a hound out.
You see, there are two types of poverty. You have relative poverty, in which talks about inequalities that you cannot do anything about because people will always have more than the others. But absolute poverty, where individuals at the age adults are unable to find their daily bread, they are unable to find accommodation, they are unable to educate their children, they are unable to get medical attention. is something I believe can be eradicated, especially when you have the huge potential that we have.
And the analogy you gave is a perfect description of the district itself. Kono is very endowed with mineral resource, a diamond to be precise. But people, you go there, Kono is just a complete paradox. And you are now going to preside over that district to provide the leadership, the vision for them to ensure that they got the benefit from their God-given resource.
Yes, Kono, people know it to be a diamond-ferrous region. But when you look at the entire district, there are only 5 out of the 14 chiefdoms that are diamond-ferrous. And even in those 5 chiefdoms, it's only the central of it that you actually have diamonds. The rest is endowed with agricultural potentials. And what gives me a comparative advantage here is that my leader, the president, has been to Kono severally, in fact 18 times. And each time he went to Kono, he would tell us that I'm not after Kono for political reasons. He said there is historical injustice that Kono has suffered from, and I want to correct that historical injustice. I.e., Kono has been known to be the breadbasket of this country. A number of foreigners from neighboring West African countries and beyond have actually amassed a lot of wealth there. If you go to the Gambia, you go to Mali, you see these huge hotels. These are all proceeds from wealth from Kono. Several other groups or citizens of this country actually had their early livelihood in Kono district. I recall when I was in government, I was chairman of I'm secretary to the Constitutional Review Committee. And when we had the launch, almost all the chiefs in this country were there. And the Northern chiefs, when they discovered that, I told them that I was in Kono, from Kono, they were very, very happy. Meaning a lot of people have benefited from the wealth of Kono. But as you said, you go there now, there's nothing to show. So since the president has made up his mind that he was going to correct that historical injustice, and we have seen sign of that by making sure that we now have University of Kono under construction, so that our children will no longer struggle to come for higher education. He has also undertaken a very big project, which is a road leading to my own chiefdom and right to the border to Guinea, and that's the breadbasket of Kono district. So if that road is completed, it will open Kono to to international trade and so many other opportunities. Okay. And we also now have a 24-hour light in Kwedu City, meaning that people can now engage in so many activities that required energy. And I see that he also has other plans. And the only way, especially the rural areas, can benefit from that of his vision of rectifying correcting the ills that have been done to Kono, is when you have somebody also who can ensure that this benefit that he is taking to the district are also replicated in the countryside. And that is what I told the Kono people, and we are very happy that the president has that sort of vision when he said Kono matters to him. Okay. So the fact that I was able to get almost 62% of the vote in the rural areas is a demonstration that the people have confidence in the president. And I appeal to him that we're not looking for too much positions, we're looking for opportunities so that we can put it at the disposal of our people to transform their lives.
Thank you very much, Augustine Sheku, BC Council Chair-elect. Augustine Martinez, as we are rounding up, as activists, how would you ensure that you monitor and provide the support to young people who have been appointed so that they succeed? Because if they do, then it gives opportunity and spaces to more young people who are outside the fringes.
So just like we have been doing before in advocating for young people to be given leadership position in such capacity, we shall continue on that trend by reminding the appointees that they have been appointed based on the fact that we have over the years advocated for us young people to be given such position in serving those capacity. So in that regards, they must serve that capacity diligently, so that at the end of the day, they will create opportunities or platform for us, for many more young people out there precisely. So in that regards, they have been admonitored precisely to do their ultimate best, because at the end of the day, it is when they deliver and give results that is when, at the end of the day, they'll be able to give more position or responsibility to many more young people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Kex, as we are rounding up now, you guys will go to Parliament and for parliamentary approval, and then you hit the ground running. You and Chernobyl what's going to be your vision for the Ministry of Information? One of the oldest ministries.
Well, I think
SLBC is under your portfolio, by the way.
Yes, well, I think the outgoing minister, Minister Gado, has done a fantastic job in the ministry. He has laid the foundation. I mean, I was with somebody earlier doing AYB program when the person was saying they wish they had somebody in the media background. And then he then corrected himself and said, well, we used to have many people who are journalists, but what the Minister Gado did, many did not succeed. So I think the assurance we'll give to our good friends in the media landscape is firstly to assure them that we have a relationship that we have built over this period of time, and our vision is to make sure that we build from what Mr. Gado has done in terms of making sure that we strengthen the bond and also supports the media landscape. There are many issues obviously they have with the challenges with the IMC Act, many issues also they have in terms of the conference for funding of the developments of the media landscape. You know, we will sit once the minister, substantive minister is back in town. We'll have discussions and then we'll have understanding. Civic as well. I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of civic.
Yeah, I forgot to talk about that.
Yes.
Okay, I wish we had time.
Yes, a lot of civic. So, you know, so but all of these, I think we have a baseline.
Okay.
Because even for civic as well, we had Tutange, Khalid Tutange, who has done phenomenally well there. We also meet and sit, and then we review everything that we've done.
Thank you.
And then see how we move forward.
Thank you very much. I wish you well in your new mandate.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was checking in just 5 seconds. A message to the newly appointed ministers as someone who had risen through the ranks of the civil service, who had seen the coming and going of many ministers.
I will admonish the ministers to ensure that they provide the support that the president requires of them, and also to develop mutual relationship with the public service, especially, as I said, in the area of ensuring that they are given the capacity that is required. Okay. And promotions should also be based on merit, and they should not be based on any political party lines or partisan interests. But people should be posted to ministries based on the competencies that they desire, so that they can provide the managerial as well as the technical support that the ministers need to develop the country.
Thank you very much. Well, he is Augustine Sheku, a former permanent secretary and now the district council chair of Kono District. Well, also in the studio is Keketoma Sandy, who is a newly appointed deputy minister of information. Also, Augustine Martin Martinez. Well, on behalf of all of us and my producer Salman Taba, I have been your host Asmi Yuba. Till we join you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of the podium. This I will say goodbye. God bless you.